So recently I read this book called Yesteryear by Caro Kerr Burke, and I must say I was pretty moved by the book because it deals about so many things like femininity, like traditional housewife, like entire thing, like how women are perceived to like or they're forced to think about different things. Like I was so much impressed by the book. So let's give me a quick like a kind of view about the book, okay? And spoiler alert, if there are people who don't like getting spoilers before reading the book, this might not be for you. So actually, we have our main character called Natalie, and she is someone for whom you'll feel pity for the first for the first few pages. You might feel pity for the person, but the second pages, like the after pages, that the more you read about her, the more you realize that more than pity, she is very, I must say that she is a very unhappy person because she fails to realize that she is not what she thinks she is. In her mind, she is living a very beautiful life, a very fantastic life with her husband, with her kids, in a very beautiful farm. But the reality is very quite different. She is someone who thinks very highly of herself, and she constantly puts her like other friends and peers down. She thinks that her sister's life is miserable, but to be honest, we as a reader, we we find that at times her own life, Natalie's own life, is so much worse than the people with whom she constantly compares herself. Like at one time when I was reading, like when she gets so frustrated with her husband and her mother-in-law and everything, like when she was staying with her husband, she actually quietly goes to the bathroom and she like opens all the tap and everything, and she starts crying and screaming in the in the towel. Like that scene was very much moving because I felt like in a way she wanted to ask for help, but she was like I must say she was too proud, or maybe she was too blind to see that she was in need of like a help. And actually that many women, we are in that situation sometimes. Like we are expected to do so much, we are always expected to do everything, like all the duties and responsibilities, and especially the modern women, we sometimes like we have to juggle with so many things. The same with Natalie, but the thing is like it became worse because she fails to understand her wrongdoings, she fails to understand her mistakes, and instead what she does is like she starts abusing like her children. She fails to realize that she has to at least be a good mother, but then she puts like she like passes on the trauma to her daughters and then to other children. And she actually at last, what happens is like she's so much into her own world, into her own like imagination, that she spirals into insanity. Actually the thing is like that. So I feel like women, as women, we are often taught to suppress our emotions. We are often taught to just pretend like like how her mother says her when she tries to tell her sometimes that she is not well, especially after giving birth to her first daughter. Practically she's like suffering from a postpartum depression. She tries to convey her to that mother, but then instead of like supporting her, instead of saying that she should get some therapy, what she gets is like everything will be okay, everything will be fine, this is how things happen for women. And she kind of normalizes all the abuse that she herself was like facing. And her husband, oh my god, what should I say about her husband? Her husband is someone who is very, I won't say childish, but then her husband fails to understand. Like her husband is so irresponsible, and at times I feel like her husband was not allowed to grow into a mature human being because he was also protected by his parents, and then after that he was never really taught how to take responsibilities. But instead what it's like two immature person, like two immature people who can't even take care of themselves, when they start deciding to have a family, and when they go on producing like children after children, almost like 10 children, then how can you expect everything to be so like proper? Everything, like this story itself, like I felt like the story was such a beautiful, I won't say beautiful, but it was such a horror kind of in, like take to many things in society, like how like even when I open my feed these days, there are so many videos about being a traditional wife, about living in a farm, about how some girls or some women, they don't want to like settle for jobs, they don't want to go into the corporate world and do a 9 to 5 job. It's okay, it's their decision. But what happens when like, because they think that it's very easy, or like it's a very easy thing to go on a farm and do all the stuff like cooking, and cooking is easy, but then to grow the everything produce, for example, to look after the cattle, to do the everything in the old way, some people might think that's easy, but easy, it's a different term. So what, so people, they try to run away from something, but they end up being in a situation, they might end up being in a situation that's sometimes it can be much worse than what they had imagined. Like in her case, Natalie's case, she, but I don't even blame her. It was not her entire idea to like go into the farm and start living out there, because it was in a way her husband was so incapable. Her husband was someone who had lacked that dreams or lacked that aspirations. So at last, when she had no other options, she settles and she thinks that she wants to start a family in a while living in a farm. So the thing is like, but things don't turn always like how we imagine, right? So the thing is, after settling in the farm, she realizes actually how difficult it might be. Like farming is actually pretty difficult, and then with like farming is, I feel like farming is one like sector where like nothing is so fixed, like you won't have a fixed income, you won't have a fixed salary, like every month there will be some salary credited to your account, like that. And if nothing is like fixed, so after going there she realizes life is very hard. Then somehow by miracle, what happens, she starts going viral online, and she just like, she becomes like a big celebrity on Instagram. So everything is going fine, but then what happens really, like after, in the internet, like what people see on internet, it's not always true, right? Like some people, they just show fragments of their life, and that's actually what Natalie also does. She does not show her entire life on that Instagram. She only shows like parts which she feels like might be appropriate for the audience, and the audience also believes in her. They're very happy. They get the content, that wholesome family in a farm, in a very like cowboy kind of setup. They are very happy. But what happens actually is like, behind all those closed like doors, there is something that's not so perfect, like how she shows it on Instagram. Because she has lots of kids, and then there are lots of work to do, and then she has to look after the kids, and her husband also kind of practically is like kind of helpless, I would say, because his husband is not adding too much like to the family. Like I feel like that sometimes he has a father, he has a husband, he could have done so much more, but he is someone who just wants an easy life like that. And so that, but after that, Natalie really starts spiraling down, because maybe some fame also got into her brain, and maybe she started thinking that she was like better than others like that. But then after sometimes, what happens is like, she slowly starts losing the grip of reality, and some incident actually happens on the farm, after which Natalie does like a big move, like big mistake. And after that, what happens is like, she spirals into insanity. The thing is like that, okay? And then the entire plot was like, so I read this book in like 2 days, because I had to go for work and stuff like that. But it's a very, actually it's a very short read. Like people might be able to finish this book in like one day or something like that. And this book is actually something that actually that made me realize a lot of things, like a lot. It's actually gave me a lot of insight, how sometimes, like, about a lot of things, like how celebrities, they show their life on Instagram, how even a perfect couple or even a perfect human being might be so flawed. And then how, like, how women are always told to be okay and fine with everything, but at the end, if these things continue, they might even be like mentally unstable, I would say. So it's a very good book, and I recommend everyone, like, if they have the time, they should read this book, especially women, because we as a generation, we I feel like we as a generation, we often have so much access to Instagram, like so much access to all the phone content and all. So what do we do is, like, we always look for the look like an escape. Okay, now when we see someone is having a very good life, when someone is having a very soft life, or something like a very, a life that we dream of, like will be a, so like a easy life, we instantly feel like we should do that. Like, we'll see, like, if someone is living in a farm and posting contents like a wholesome family content about, like, living in a traditional way, for example, and we as a generation will be like, oh, even I want to escape everything, like working for jobs, like working for a company, and even I want to live that life. But is it sustainable? Is it actually what they show in that Instagram, in that page? Is it actually the truth? That's what it's in this book. And actually, this book is like, and the way the writer has written, I must say, I became her fan, because the way she has written is such a, it's such in a gripping way. Like, after reading one page, you'll be very much, like, you'll be thinking, what next, like that. You'll be constantly thinking, okay, like, what will be next? Why is it like this? Was it the, well, like, and it's written in such a way that will make the readers think for some time, like, why is it happening like this? Was it this, like, the timeline? There's also some timeline, this thing, okay, like, I won't give the entire spoiler, but even a timeline, what was the mystery is there. So it makes the reader think, and it makes the reader understand a lot of things. So this book is a must read, I must say. And I must say, if someone is, like trying to, someone loves reading, for example, I was someone who always loved reading, and for me, reading has always been like a therapy. I love reading novels, I love reading fictions, actually. So for me, reading is always something that is dear to my heart. But since since many days, like since many months, I would say, I had not read a book, and this book actually was a very good start to end my that gap period, I would say. It was such a, because it's such a quick read, so engaging, I would say. And it deals with so many things which are actually relevant, and which are actually something that women actually deal with. Okay, that mental health issues, post partum depressions, and so many things. And it's also deals about child abuse. So it's like such a nice read, I must say. And this is a must read from my side. I was so happy reading it. I was so satisfied reading it, and I was so content. And even though the ending, like, I feel like ending could have been a little bit more, like, it was like kind of rushed, I would say. But by the end, I was like, because in a way, I never thought what would happen. Like, in the end, there is a very twist is there, and after reading the twist, I was already like, damn, why such thing? And then I wanted, but I actually wanted, like, what happens with her husband, and what happens with Caleb, what happens with all the kids. I wanted to know more, like, what did they do. And it's a very nice book, but, and I'm so happy reading it. Okay, thank you guys.